I thought I knew everything about my father after 32 years, but one whispered warning from my husband at Dad's retirement party shattered my entire world. What Marcus revealed on that drive home made me question every memory, every birthday, every "I love you" my father ever said. My name is Emma Chen Morrison. I'm 32 years old, an elementary school teacher who thought she had the perfect family blueprint. My husband Marcus and I had been together for 5 years, married for 3 of them. He was the quiet, analytical type who balanced out my emotional, impulsive nature. My father, Walter Chen, was retiring as police chief after 35 years of what everyone called distinguished service. My mother, Diane, had stood by his side through every late night, every dangerous call, every commendation ceremony. That night was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it became the night I discovered that the man who taught me about justice had been living a lie that would destroy everything I believed about family, truth, and the father I'd idolized my entire life. What would you do if the person you trusted most in the world turned out to be someone you never really knew at all? The morning of my father's retirement party started like so many Saturdays from my childhood. I woke up in my old bedroom at my parents' house, surrounded by faded posters of soccer stars and debate team trophies. The familiar scent of Mom's coffee brewing downstairs mixed with something else that made my heart squeeze with nostalgia. Dad's famous pancakes with cinnamon. "Emma, honey, you're up." My mother Diane called from the kitchen as I padded downstairs in my old high school softball shirt. "Your father's making enough pancakes to feed an army. Again." I found them in their usual Saturday morning positions. Dad stood at the stove, flipping pancakes with the precision of someone who'd perfected the technique over 3 decades. Mom sat at the kitchen island going over her checklist for the party, her reading glasses perched on her nose. This was them, the steady rhythm of a 35-year marriage that had weathered everything life threw their way. "There's my Emmy," Dad said, using my childhood nickname as he slid a perfect stack onto a plate. "Marcus still sleeping?" "He's on his way. Had to stop by the office to grab something," I said, stealing a piece of bacon from the serving plate. "Can't believe you're actually retiring, Dad. Thought they'd have to drag you out of that office." Walter Chen laughed, the deep rumble I'd been hearing my whole life. At 58, he still cut an impressive figure. Tall, broad-shouldered, with silver threading through his black hair in a way Mom called distinguished. His presence had always made me feel safe, protected. Even now, as a grown woman, being near him made me feel like nothing bad could ever happen. "Time to let the younger generation take over," he said, though I caught the wistfulness in his voice. "Besides, your mother's got a list of house projects longer than my arrest record." "Your arrest record's pretty impressive," Mom teased. "Remember the Hartley case? The whole precinct thought that guy would never get caught." They fell into easy conversation about Dad's greatest hits. Cases solved, lives saved, bad guys put away. I'd heard these stories 100 times, but I never got tired of them. My father wasn't just a cop. He was the kind of cop they made movies about. The kind who coached Little League on weekends, who knew every kid in the neighborhood by name, who once talked a desperate father out of doing something terrible by sharing his own struggles, raising a teenage daughter. Marcus arrived just as we were finishing breakfast, greeting my parents with genuine warmth. That's one of the things I loved about him. He'd slotted into my family like a missing puzzle piece. Dad respected his intelligence and work ethic. Mom adored his dry humor and the way he looked at me like I hung the moon. "Ready for the party setup, Chief?" Marcus asked, helping clear plates. "Just Walter now," Dad corrected with a smile, "or soon-to-be professional fisherman, according to my retirement plans." We spent the next hours transforming my parents' backyard into Party Central. Mom directed operations with military precision while Dad and Marcus hung lights and set up tables. I worked on the photo display. 35 years of service captured in carefully selected images. Dad receiving his badge. Dad with his first patrol partner. Dad getting promoted to detective, then captain, then chief. Our family scattered throughout, me at various ages, Mom aging gracefully beside him, always his strongest supporter. "Look at this one," Mom said, holding up a photo of Dad teaching me to ride a bike. "You were so determined even after scraping both knees." "She gets that from you," Dad said, wrapping an arm around Mom's waist. "That Morrison stubbornness." Uncle Byron arrived first, bearing his famous potato salad and bear hugs for everyone. Dad's younger brother had followed him into law enforcement, but stayed at the patrol level, happy to work his beat until retirement. Then came Aunt Celeste with her twins, Dad's poker buddies from the force, our neighbors, and what seemed like half the police department. Commander Reeves, Dad's best friend and newly appointed chief, pulled me aside. "Your father's the best man I've ever worked with, Emma. This department won't be the same without him." By evening, our backyard buzzed with conversation and laughter. Kids ran between tables while adults swapped stories about Dad. The caterers Mom hired moved efficiently through the crowd, keeping glasses full and plates loaded. Everything was perfect. The weather, the food, the company. I stood by the dessert table, watching my parents dance to their song, the same one they'd danced to at their wedding. Dad whispered something in Mom's ear that made her laugh and swat his chest playfully. This was love, I thought. This was what Marcus and I were building toward. I had no idea that in less than an hour, everything I believed about my family would shatter into pieces too small to ever put back together. The trouble started during dinner. We just finished the main course when I noticed Marcus hadn't touched his plate. His grilled salmon sat untouched. The asparagus he usually loved pushed to one side. This wasn't like him at all. Marcus had the appetite of someone who ran 5 miles every morning, and Mom's hired caterers had outdone themselves. "Honey, you feeling okay?" I whispered, leaning close enough to smell his cologne mixed with something else. Nervous sweat. He gave me a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. Just a long week at work. But I knew my husband. I knew the difference between his work-stressed face and whatever this was. His jaw kept clenching and unclenching, a nervous habit he'd developed in college during finals. His eyes weren't focused on anything at our table. Instead, they kept drifting to where my father sat at the head table, laughing at something Commander Reeves had said. "Marcus, seriously, what's wrong?" I pressed, placing my hand over his. His hand was ice cold and slightly trembling. In 5 years together, I'd seen Marcus nervous exactly twice. When he proposed and when his mom had emergency surgery. This was something different. This was fear. "Not here?" he said quietly, his voice strained. "Please, Emma, just... not here." Before I could respond, Dad stood up, tapping his knife against his glass. The backyard fell silent as everyone turned their attention to the man of honor. My father had always commanded a room, but tonight he seemed to glow with satisfaction and pride. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight," Dad began, his voice carrying across the yard. 35 years ago, I took an oath to protect and serve this community. It's been the honor of my lifetime to wear this badge. The crowd murmured appreciation. I should have been focused on my father's words, but I couldn't stop watching Marcus. His face had gone pale, and he gripped his water glass so tightly I worried it might shatter. Through every challenge, every long night, every difficult decision, I've had my compass, my beautiful wife Diane, who never let me forget what we were fighting for, and my daughter Emma, who reminded me every day why this job mattered. People turned to smile at Mom and me. I forced myself to smile back, but my stomach churned with growing dread. Something was terribly wrong with Marcus. Dad continued his speech, talking about integrity, duty, and the thin blue line. With each word, Marcus seemed to shrink into himself. When Dad mentioned a case from several years ago, something about bringing down a drug ring, Marcus actually flinched. "Excuse me," Marcus muttered, pushing back from the table. "Bathroom." He walked away too quickly, his movements jerky and uncomfortable. I counted to 30 before following, making my own excuses to Aunt Celeste, who was asking about our vacation plans. I found him in my parents' powder room, splashing cold water on his face. His hands shook as he gripped the sink. "Marcus, you're scaring me. Talk to me." He looked up, meeting my eyes in the mirror. The fear I saw there made my breath catch. "We need to leave." "What? Number Dad's about to cut the cake. Mom ordered it from that special bakery downtown. It's shaped like a badge and..." "Emma." He turned to face me, grabbing my shoulders gently but firmly. "I need you to trust me. We need to leave. Right now." "Not until you tell me why. Is someone sick? Did something happen at work? Are you having some kind of panic attack? I'll explain everything in the car. Please, I've never asked you for anything like this, but I'm asking now. We need to go. The desperation in his voice cut through my confusion. This was Marcus, steady, logical, never dramatic Marcus, begging me to leave my father's retirement party without explanation. Every instinct screamed that something was catastrophically wrong. Okay, I heard myself say. Okay, we'll go. We returned to the party where Dad was posing for pictures with his command staff. I caught Mom between photos fabricating a story about Marcus feeling sick, probably food poisoning from lunch. Her face creased with concern. Do you need anything? I can pack some food for later. No, Mom, we're fine, just need to get him home. The lie tasted bitter on my tongue. Dad waved from across the yard, calling out, "Feel better, son." Marcus barely managed a nod in return. I'd never seen him move so fast as we walked to our car, as if something might chase us if we didn't hurry. His hands shook as he fumbled with the keys. "I'll drive," I said, but he shook his head. I need to focus on something. As we pulled away from my childhood home, leaving behind the party lights and laughter, my heart hammered against my ribs. In the passenger seat, I twisted to watch the house disappear, unaware I was seeing my old life for the last time. "Marcus," I said as we turned onto the main road, "you need to tell me what's happening. Right now." He white-knuckled the steering wheel, jaw working silently. Then, finally, the words that would change everything. "Your dad isn't who you think he is. And something." Marcus pulled into the empty parking lot of a closed grocery store, the overhead lights casting harsh shadows across his face. He turned off the engine and sat there for a moment, hands still gripping the wheel like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. "Start talking," I said, my voice sharper than intended. "You just made me walk out of my father's retirement party. My mother thinks you have food poisoning, so whatever this is, it better be worth it." He turned to face me, and the pain in his eyes made my anger evaporate. "Remember last month when I had that cybersecurity conference in Portland? Of course. You were gone for 3 days. You brought me back that coffee mug from the convention center. I did go to the conference, but I also met with a private client, a company called Meridian Financial. They'd been hacked 20 years ago. Someone accessed their entire database, including client information, transaction records, everything. They hired me to analyze some old security footage they'd recently digitized. I didn't understand where this was going. "Marcus, what does this have to do with my father?" He reached for his phone, his movements careful and deliberate. The hacker was caught on camera for just a few seconds. The quality was terrible, but they'd used new enhancement software. Emma, when I saw the cleared-up image, I couldn't believe it. I ran it through facial recognition software 5 times. My mouth went dry. "What are you saying?" "It was your father, Emma. The man in that footage was Walter Chen." The words hit me like a physical blow. That's impossible. 20 years ago, Dad was a detective. He was hunting criminals, not... That's insane, Marcus. You made a mistake. That's what I thought. I was sure there had to be an explanation. Maybe he was undercover. Maybe it was someone who looked like him. So I started digging. Marcus unlocked his phone, pulling up an encrypted folder. "I didn't want to believe it, Emma. I spent weeks trying to prove myself wrong. This is crazy. My father is a decorated police chief. He's received commendations from the mayor, from the governor. Emma, please, just look." He handed me the phone. The first document was a bank record from 2003, a deposit of $50,000 into an account I didn't recognize. Then another from 2004 and another. The account name was WC Consulting, LLC. "That could be anyone," I said weakly. Marcus swiped to the next document. A police report from 2005 signed by Detective Walter Chen. It detailed the investigation of a city councilman accused of embezzlement. Case closed due to lack of evidence. The next image showed a deposit into WC Consulting 2 days later, $75,000. "No," I whispered. "No, this isn't real. There's more." Marcus's voice was gentle but relentless. "Remember the Donovan case? The businessman who was accused of running an illegal gambling ring?" I nodded numbly. Dad had been the lead investigator. The case had fallen apart when key evidence went missing. Dad had been furious, ranting for weeks about incompetent evidence handlers. Marcus showed me another document, a shipping receipt for a storage unit rented under a false name, the same storage unit where the missing evidence was eventually found, after the statute of limitations had expired. The handwriting on the rental agreement matched my father's. He wasn't just taking bribes, Emma. He was actively sabotaging cases, destroying evidence, intimidating witnesses. Marcus pulled up an audio file. This is from a wiretap the FBI had on Anthony Volkov in 2008. They were building a RICO case. A gravelly voice filled the car. Don't worry about the cop situation. Chen's handling it. Cost us $100,000, but he'll make sure the witness develops amnesia. Then another voice, younger, skeptical. You trust this guy? Been working with him for 5 years. He's smart about it. Never greedy, never sloppy. Plus, he's got that whole community hero thing going. Nobody suspects Captain America. I shoved the phone away, bile rising in my throat. Stop, just stop. There's one more thing you need to know. Marcus's voice cracked. It's about your cousin Bella. My head snapped up. Bella had disappeared 15 years ago, just after her 18th birthday. She'd been living with us while attending community college. One day she was there, the next she was gone. Dad had led the investigation himself, working 18-hour days, following every lead. He'd been devastated when the trail went cold. Marcus, if you're about to tell me my father hurt Bella— He didn't hurt her, but he knew where she was. Emma, she saw something she wasn't supposed to see. Your father gave her a choice, disappear or put the whole family at risk. The world tilted. I gripped the door handle, fighting nausea. You're lying. She's alive, Emma, living in Seattle under the name Rebecca Torres. I've been in contact with her for 2 weeks. She wants to see you, but she's terrified. She has recordings, documents. Your father's retirement isn't voluntary. Internal Affairs is closing in. He's trying to get out before it all comes crashing down. I stared at my husband, searching his face for any sign this was some cruel joke. But Marcus didn't lie. He didn't exaggerate. He dealt in facts and data, and the pain in his eyes told me he wished none of this was true. Show me, I whispered. Show me everything. Marcus pulled out a tablet from his laptop bag, his fingers moving across the screen with practiced precision. I encrypted everything, multiple backups. Emma, what you're about to see— Just show me, I said, my voice hollow. The first video file was grainy security footage from a parking garage. The timestamp read, October 15th, 2009, 2:47 a.m. I watched my father exit an unmarked sedan and approach another vehicle. A man got out. I recognized him as Vincent Carlisle, a developer who'd been investigated for bribing city officials. The investigation had mysteriously stalled after key witnesses recanted their testimony. They talked for less than 2 minutes. Carlisle handed my father a thick envelope. Dad looked inside, nodded, and walked back to his car. The casualness of it made my stomach turn, like he was picking up dry cleaning, not selling his soul. Keep going, I said when Marcus paused. The next file was an audio recording, a young woman's voice, scared but determined. My name is Isabella Rosa Martinez. I'm making this recording on June 3rd, 2010, in case something happens to me. Bella, my sweet, funny cousin who taught me to braid friendship bracelets and snuck me candy when Mom said no more sugar. Her voice continued. 2 nights ago, I came home early from my shift at the restaurant. Uncle Walter was in his home office with 2 men I didn't recognize. The door was cracked open. I heard them discussing a shipment coming through the port, cocaine. Uncle Walter was explaining how he'd make sure patrol routes avoided certain warehouses on delivery nights. My hands shook as Bella's voice filled the car. When I tried to back away, I knocked over a vase. Uncle Walter found me in the hallway. The look on his face— I'd never seen him like that. Cold, calculating. He told me I had 2 choices: leave tonight and never contact the family again, or risk everyone I loved getting hurt by the people he worked with. He said he was protecting us all, that these men wouldn't hesitate to kill Aunt Diane or Emma if I became a problem. The recording continued. Bella described how my father had given her $10,000 in cash, a fake ID, and a bus ticket to Seattle. How he'd made her rehearse her cover story, a fight with her parents, running off with some guy. How he'd hugged her goodbye and whispered, "I'm sorry, Mija. This is the only way." Marcus showed me photos next, recent ones of Bella, now Rebecca, outside a coffee shop in Seattle. She looked older, tired, but unmistakably my cousin. The same heart-shaped face, the same nervous habit of tucking her hair behind her ear. She manages a bookstore now, Marcus said quietly. Has a partner, 2 cats. She's built a life, but she's never stopped looking over her shoulder. How long have you known? My voice sounded distant, like someone else was speaking. I confirmed it was your father in the Meridian footage 6 weeks ago. I've been investigating ever since. Emma, I wanted to be wrong. I kept hoping I'd find something that explained it all away. He pulled up financial records spanning 2 decades, deposits ranging from $25,000 to $200,000, all traced back to criminal organizations my father was supposedly investigating. The private school tuition that my parents said came from Mom's inheritance, paid for with blood money. Our family vacations, the house renovations, my college fund, all of it tainted. The worst part, Marcus continued, showing me a FBI memo from 2019, is that your father wasn't just taking bribes. He was strategically protecting a network of criminals. Drug traffickers, human smugglers, arms dealers. He made sure their cases fell apart while maintaining his reputation as a tough-on-crime cop. The criminals he did arrest? Mostly their competition. I thought about all the nights Dad came home late, exhausted from fighting the good fight. The pride in Mom's voice when she talked about his dedication, the commendations on his office wall, all of it built on lies and suffering. Internal Affairs has been building a case for 2 years, Marcus said. A detective named Patricia Wong went to the FBI when her investigation kept hitting walls. Your father has allies everywhere, but she's been working with federal agents. They're days away from arresting him. I grabbed the tablet, scrolling through document after document. Witness statements from cops who'd noticed discrepancies but were too scared to speak up. Photos of my father meeting with known criminals. Bank records showing millions flowing through shell companies. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable. There's something else, Marcus said. Your mom. I don't think she knows. At least not the full extent. I've gone through everything and there's no indication she was involved. A sob escaped my throat. My mother, who ironed Dad's uniforms with such pride, who kept a scrapbook of every newspaper article mentioning his cases. She dedicated her life to a man who'd betrayed everything they supposedly stood for. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked, tears streaming down my face. I was trying to figure out how to protect you, how to get you away from him before the arrests happened. But tonight, watching him play the loving father and grandfather, accepting everyone's praise, I couldn't let you stay there. I couldn't let him keep pretending. Marcus reached for my hand. Emma, I'm so sorry. I know this is destroying everything you believed, but you deserved the truth. I looked at the photo of Bella on the screen, then back at my husband. The weight of 20 years of deception crushed down on me, but through the pain, one thought emerged clear and sharp. The truth, however agonizing, was better than a beautiful lie. 3 weeks after the retirement party, I sat across from my cousin Bella in a quiet Seattle coffee shop. She looked smaller than I remembered, worn down by years of hiding, but her eyes still held that spark of warmth I'd loved as a kid. When she reached across the table to take my hand, we both started crying. I wanted to contact you so many times, she whispered, every birthday, every Christmas, but I was terrified of what he might do. We talked for hours. She told me about the night she disappeared, how my father had been almost gentle as he destroyed her life, how he'd assured her this was the only way to keep everyone safe, how she'd spent years in therapy trying to reconcile the uncle who taught her to ride a bike with the man who exiled her from her family. The strangest part, Bella said, stirring her coffee absently, is that I think he genuinely believed he was protecting us. Like he'd convinced himself that working with criminals was somehow noble if it kept his family comfortable and safe. 2 days later, the FBI arrested my father at our family home. I wasn't there, but Mom called me, hysterical. The agents had been respectful but thorough, she said. They'd taken boxes of evidence from Dad's office. They'd found hidden safes she never knew existed, filled with cash and encrypted drives. I moved back home temporarily to help Mom navigate the chaos. We sat at the kitchen table where we'd shared so many happy meals, sorting through lawyers and bills and the wreckage of a life built on lies. "I keep thinking I should have known," Mom said one evening, staring at their wedding photo. 35 years, Emma, how did I not see it?" "He was good at compartmentalizing," I said, repeating what the FBI agent had told us. "He kept his two lives completely separate. You saw what he wanted you to see. But the money? I should have questioned where it came from." "Mom, he told you it was overtime and special assignments. Why would you doubt him? He was your husband. Trust isn't a character flaw." The trial lasted 6 months. I attended every day, sitting in the back row watching the man who raised me face the consequences of his choices. The prosecution laid out 20 years of corruption in methodical detail. Former colleagues testified about suspicious patterns they'd noticed. Criminals cut deals to describe how Walter Chen had facilitated their operations. The worst day was when they played recordings of Dad discussing the disposal of evidence in a murder case. The victim's family sat in the front row learning for the first time why their daughter's killer had walked free. Their anguished faces would haunt me forever. Dad took the stand on the last day. He wore the same suit he'd worn to my college graduation, and for a moment, I saw the father I'd idolized. Then he opened his mouth and destroyed that image forever. He didn't deny the charges. Instead, he tried to justify them. He talked about underfunded police departments, about choosing the lesser evil, about providing for his family in a dangerous profession. He painted himself as a pragmatist in an imperfect system. When the prosecutor asked about Bella, he actually said he'd done her a favor by getting her away from negative influences. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours, guilty on all counts, 25 to life with no possibility of parole for 15 years. As they led him away, he looked back at Mom and me. I saw no remorse in his eyes, only disappointment that we hadn't understood his twisted logic. Mom filed for divorce the next day. She sold the house, unable to live surrounded by memories built on blood money. She moved to a small apartment near her sister, starting therapy to process decades of deception. I visited every week, watching her slowly rebuild her sense of self. Marcus and I grew stronger through the ordeal. He'd risked everything to tell me the truth, knowing it would shatter my world. That kind of courage and integrity became the foundation of our renewed relationship. We started couples counseling to work through the trauma and trust issues that surfaced. 6 months after the trial, I returned to teaching. My principal had been understanding, giving me leave to handle the family crisis. Standing in front of my third graders, I thought about the lessons I taught them: honesty, kindness, standing up for what's right. Values my father had preached, but never practiced. One evening, grading papers at home, I found myself writing a letter to Dad in prison. I sealed it, then threw it away, then wrote another. This became my ritual, writing letters I'd never send, processing emotions too complex for therapy alone. In one letter, I wrote, "You taught me to be brave, to fight for justice, to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. The irony is that those lessons you gave me are exactly why I can't forgive what you've done. You created the moral compass that now points away from you." A year later, Bella came for Thanksgiving. We cooked Mom's recipes and told stories about the family members who'd cut us off after the scandal. Some bonds had broken beyond repair, but others had grown stronger. Aunt Celeste still called weekly. Uncle Byron visited when he could, struggling to reconcile his brother's crimes with the man he'd loved. That night, as Marcus and I cleaned dishes, he asked, "Do you regret knowing the truth?" I thought about the question I'd wrestled with for months. The father I'd believed in had been a fantasy, but the pain of losing that fantasy was real. Yet living in ignorance would have been worse, building my life on a foundation of lies, inadvertently benefiting from others' suffering. "No," I said finally. "The truth broke my heart, but it also set me free. I can't change what he did, but I can choose who I want to be, and that person values truth over comfortable lies." Marcus pulled me close, and I leaned into his warmth. Outside, the world went on, imperfect, complicated, sometimes cruel. But in that moment, in the honest love of my husband and the hard-won wisdom of survival, I found something my father had never really had: peace. The next morning, I returned to my classroom. 25 8-year-olds waited for their lessons about honesty and kindness, and doing the right thing even when it's hard. I taught them with conviction now, knowing the cost of those values and choosing them anyway. Because sometimes the greatest act of love is having the courage to see someone clearly, acknowledge the pain they've caused, and choose to heal anyway. My father had taught me about justice without ever understanding it himself, but in the ruins of his deception, I'd learned something he never could. True integrity isn't about maintaining a perfect image. It's about facing hard truths, owning your mistakes, and choosing to be better. And that's a lesson worth teaching. And that's where my story ends, or really, where my new life began. Learning the truth about my father shattered everything I thought I knew about family, trust, and the people we love. But in those broken pieces, I found something more valuable than the comfortable lies I'd been living with, the strength to face reality and build something genuine from the ground up. They say the truth will set you free, but they don't tell you it might destroy everything first. What matters is what you choose to build from those ashes. I chose honesty. I chose healing. I chose to break the cycle of deception that had poisoned my family for decades. If you're struggling with your own family secrets or betrayals, know that you're not alone. The path to healing isn't easy, but it's worth taking. Sometimes the people we trust most are the ones capable of the deepest deceptions. That doesn't make us foolish for trusting. It makes us human. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please take a moment to like this video. It really helps other people who might need to hear this message find their way here. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever discovered something about someone you loved that completely changed your perspective? How did you heal and move forward? Your experiences might help someone else who's going through something similar. And if you want to hear more real-life stories about family, truth, and the complicated ways we love each other, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. We share new stories every week, stories that remind us we're never as alone as we think we are. Until next time, remember, the truth might hurt, but living a lie hurts more. Choose courage. Choose honesty. Choose yourself. Take care, everyone.